the Bundesliga. It's been back for a couple of weeks now. We've seen everyone play 3 games. There's now 6 games left of the Bundesliga season. We'll start with Bayern and the classical game against Dortmund the other day. It was a very good game, I thought. Dortmund started well, but Bayern really showed their class as the game went on and were defensively very sound, weren't they?
I mean, they had sort of equal amount of, efforts, equal possession, but it's what Bayern did with that possession, what they did with their opportunities. They've shown why they're still, one of the top teams in the world, and they probably don't get the respect they deserve because it's just the Bundesliga. They win it every season. They're a very good team, and they have world-class players, and I think they're slept on way too much because they made Dortmund, Dortmund are a huge team as well. They're really good players there, and they made them look like nothing. They did school them, and that's no disrespect to them. It's just Bayern are running away with it, aren't they? And it's, everyone knows it.
Absolutely. And what did you think of the penalty shouts, James? Because personally, I don't think either are penalties, but I know this divided a lot of opinion. Is that whole thing, and handball is an interesting subject with VAR now because we've seen so many interesting decisions when it comes to handball with VAR. But VAR didn't seem to have a look at it. I know Haaland, who struck the ball, he didn't appeal it. What did you think of it?
I mean, would it have been a contentious decision if it happened in England? Probably, because VAR seems to be done so much differently here. But I wasn't really swayed either way. I could see it, a case for being a penalty, a case for not being a penalty. And last season, I'm sure there would have been uproar the next day about how if we had VAR, it would have been a confirmed penalty and whatnot. But no one seemed to be too bothered on the pitch. And, I mean, really, Bayern deserved the win regardless, and they did show they were the better team.
Do you think the league's done now?
It's not over till it's over, but as a Liverpool fan, I can safely say, it's over.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting at the minute with the Bundesliga because obviously when it started it was very close there, but we've seen Leipzig got points. They've obviously drawn 2 of their 3 games, and Dortmund lose to Bayern in what was a key fixture. And with 6 games to go, you expect
Leverkusen drop points as well, didn't they? So Wolfsburg 4-1 the other day. They could have gone to 3rd place on 56 points, just 1 behind Dortmund, and yet because they've choked there, it's letting Bayern run away with it, isn't it? And I don't think Dortmund have got enough in them to gain 7 points in 6 games. It's a big ask. I
mean, Bayern are a team, James, that I would be talking about as a team that I think, if the Champions League is to resume, as a team that I think could go on and win that competition. I think they're looking so good at the minute at the back. Obviously, Alaba's moved to centre back. He's looking very good there. You've got Alphonso Davies on fire at left back at the minute. You've got Lewandowski who scores goals for fun. They've got an abundance of brilliant attacking wingers as well. And they're just a quality club from top to bottom, aren't they, James?
Yeah, I mean, every position they seem to be stacked in. They've got options at right back, so many good options in midfield too, and obviously they've got electric wingers who seem to suit the way they play perfectly, where they can stretch the pitch out, draw players out, give it to Lewandowski, who's you give the ball to him in the area, he's going to score, and there's a reason why he's probably the most clinical player in the world right now because he makes it look so easy. Even though he's 32, 33 years old.
Yeah, it's just mad. They're such a good club, and they've got such a good team at the minute, Bayern. And as you say, you expect it to be over now. Let's move on to obviously talking about that title race and a few teams involved in there. We briefly mentioned Leverkusen there. And a man that we've not spoke about yet is Kai Havertz, James, because obviously the last video we did, Leverkusen hadn't played their first game since the return yet, so we didn't get an opportunity to talk about him. But since football's resumed, you can see why he's a player that Liverpool have been linked with, can't you?
Yeah, he's absolutely brilliant. I've been on the Havertz type train for a while now, and he's showing exactly why. I know he had a good start to the season, dropped off for a little while, but he was still playing well. he just wasn't getting the goals that we used to see him, usually scoring. But now he's playing that sort of false nine role, that attack, that very, pushed forward attacking midfielder, and he's absolutely tearing it apart because he's such an intelligent player where he'll receive it deep, attract players towards him because they're naturally drawn to try and mark him down, close him down. And then he's got players around him who he can then feed the ball into. And I'd love to have him at Liverpool. He'd be one of my number one targets because he'd suit the way we play to a T. He could go into that Firmino role as well. All players sort of innate in the midfield. I really like him.
Yeah, he just screams a Klopp player, doesn't he? He's so versatile. He's young. He'd be a superb replacement for Firmino. I do think he's got Bayern written all over him. I really, really do. But it would just be an excellent addition to our squad. And let us know what you think in the comments. Can you see Havertz as a realistic replacement for Firmino in the future? Can you see him as a realistic signing for Liverpool? He's certainly very much a Klopp player. Leipzig now, James, and I know we were going to do this as two separate videos, but I suppose it links into one here. Leipzig have been a bit shaky since football's returned. But one man that's not been shaky, one man that you can see why he's so important for Leipzig and why it shocks you that we're trying to get him for so cheap. Timo Werner has just been outstanding for them, hasn't
he? Yeah, he's a similar player to Salah in that, he's a very much a quantity over quality. He does get a lot of chances. He does miss a lot, but he makes sure he scores, and he makes sure that he's in that position where he can afford to miss 2 big chances a game because he'll score 3 more. He's such a brilliant player. He plays off the shoulder. He drops in deep to collect, and he also facilitates others as well. And he's so complete. And I know people say, he mightn't be able to deal with the physicality of the Prem. He'll be absolutely fine because he always has the ability to find space. And that's exactly what we look for going forward. We look to exploit that space. We look to pull players out of position. And if we can find a way of integrating him into our front three and having, him and Firmino playing together, that would be unstoppable going forward. Absolutely unstoppable.
He's absolutely everywhere, though, isn't he, as well? He drops deep. He goes out wide. Mm-hmm. He's just a focal point for Leipzig. And again, you can see why Klopp wants him so much. He just looks like a Liverpool player. And every time you watch him play, it's always the commentators and Ralph Honigstein in the studio saying how much he's linked with Liverpool. And I know Ralph Honigstein mentioned the whole Skype video call with during Easter. And, I think it's one of them that was so close to happening before all this coronavirus stuff. And then this has obviously delayed it massively. And then we have the news that we had on Wednesday night from Dave Maddock of the Mirror, who came out and said that it's unlikely now, and because of all the coronavirus stuff, there's a money issue, and Liverpool are desperate. They don't want to match Leipzig's release clause. They want to get him for far cheaper than that. I saw something somewhere that actually we value him more at 30 million with everything going on. That's as far as we'd be willing to pay. What do you make of it all, James?
I mean, I think we're posturing. We're trying to look, like we're the ones dictating negotiations. At the end of the day, Leipzig don't need to sell. They're not a smaller team. They're a big club, and they've got vast amounts of financial backing where they're not going to need to sell players every summer. They only sold Keita to us because we offered them such a high price. They could have kept him, and they were willing to keep him at one point, weren't they? So, I mean, 30 million would probably reflect how the market's sort of going to change, where we're seeing players, being rumoured to be leaving for about, 30% off their, real value. But I think we'll struggle to get him for less than 40, if his valuation is about 50 of.
It's so difficult right now because nobody knows what's going to happen with the transfer market, and it's so easy to say one thing and then the next minute you don't know what's going to change. And I spoke with Ross about it the other day on over on the redmentv.com on Reds News Roundup. It's interesting because I think when football resumes and when the transfer window opens, it's going to be waiting for that first team to play the first move and get the first player. And United are a club that have come out and said that they want to use this to their advantage, and they want to, to open talks with players and start getting ready to sign players, and they've been massively linked with Jadon Sancho and others. It's going to be interesting to see what's the first club to spend how much money, and can clubs
set the bar, isn't it? It's going to set a precedent, which, the same way the Neymar transfer inflated everything. I think the first big transfer now is going to show players, how much are we sort of knocking off and how much can we expect to pay.
And the Werner deal would be very good for that, because he is a world-class player. He's their most important player. And if they're to go, you know what, we're desperate for the money right now, which, by the way, I don't think Leipzig will do. And that's why I think it's doubtful now, because Leipzig, like you said and alluded to before, they don't need to sell. They're a big club in Germany. They've got lots of money. They're owned by the Red Bull Group. They don't need to sell Timo Werner. And I know he very much wants to join us. He said that a lot. Werner is flirting with it loads, but it's just, we're gonna have to spend a certain amount of money to get him, and I can't see us getting him for 30 million. If we do, it would be an absolute steal.
I think we'll get him for more, and I think we're hoping that Leipzig are bluffing. Where, okay, if we back off and say fine, we're not interested, they will come back to us and say, okay, we'll accept this amount. 30 is too low. We'll take 40. That's down 10 million. I can't see us walking away just because we can't get a few million off the transfer deal. I mean, realistically, we have got money. We can afford it. It's just saving money where possible to reinvest maybe somewhere else. We've got players that could be going out that would be able to pay for that. So, I don't know. I've still got a bit of hope.
Well, we that's all we can do right now. Hope, and hopefully we do see Timo Werner in a Liverpool shirt sooner rather than later. There's all that thing as well that actually it might be a Keita-like deal, and we do sign him, but he ends up staying at Leipzig for next season and then coming to us in 2021, 2022, or something like that. We don't know at this point. It's very, very, it's all up in the air, James, isn't it? To go back to the Bundesliga, though, I've picked out a most informed team right now, and a team that's very much out of form. And we'll start with the one that's out of form, and that's Schalke, isn't it, James?
Yeah, they've been terrible. They've not won in 9 games now. The last win was on the 4th of February against Hertha Berlin. They won 3-2. Since then, they've had 3 draws, 6 losses, with 3 of those losses coming since play resumed. They got battered by Dortmund. They got battered by Augsburg at home. And I think they've just lost to Dusseldorf as well. I don't really know what's going on, because they've got a good team. They see that we thought they got a good manager, and yet it's just fallen apart for them, isn't it, completely?
Yeah, you have to feel for David Wagner. He's a man that I think us English fans can admire, because we all know what he did, what a great job he did at Huddersfield, and especially for us Liverpool fans, we know his relationship with Jurgen Klopp, and he's a man that I'd want to do very well at Schalke, yeah. But they've not looked good. We know Schalke is this global big German club. In the last few years, it hasn't been like that, and certainly not this season. And Wagner went in, and we're all hoping he does well there, but he just hasn't. And since play's resumed, they've not looked like the Schalke we all know. And as you say, battered by 2 clubs, both Dortmund and Augsburg, and it's just very interesting. We know that with home sides at the minute, that they've not been as dominant as we saw before. Play was stopped, obviously, since it's resumed. Home sides have struggled a bit more. What do you make of all that, James?
I mean, you've still got, I think, like, home players will have the confidence of that this is their patch. They need to win here. But for the away team, I don't think there's got that intimidation of, we need to go to the stadium, the fans are going to give us grief, because it's a strange one, isn't it? Because I think it means more for the home team than it's going to affect the away team.
Yeah, it's so weird, because there's no fans to put pressure on you, and you're making that journey. You have got thousands of opposition fans there making the atmosphere and putting the pressure on the home side to do better. So it's very interesting to see that pattern, but as we've seen from Schalke in that game against Augsburg, it really affected them, and they're not the only club that's been affected by the lack of home atmosphere. But they'll be hoping that they can turn their form around. But without fans in the stadium, it must be even harder to find form when you.
Yeah, so it's obviously tricky for home to not have that home support where you know that the fans have got your back and they're going to keep supporting you. But ultimately, these home teams, they're still playing for pride. They've still got these fans at home that still want to win just as much as ever. And, ultimately, if they get hammered at home by a team which they should be beating, they're still going to be feeling it the exact same way because they still have to go to their families. They still have to look online. They're still going to read the newspapers and see them getting slandered. It just delays the onslaught by 90 minutes. It changes nothing for them, really.
Yeah, but they'll be hoping they can turn that form around pretty soon.
Yeah.
But again, it brings into context with all that thing. They don't really have anything to play for anymore, Schalke, and they're playing for pride, if anything. So it's whether there's anything for them to want to turn it around right now. But you'd like to think they do. You'd like to think that Wagner's not been there too long. They want to turn it around. They want to start playing for their new manager. So it's going to be interesting to keep an eye on Schalke and see what happens there in the next few weeks. But to go back to an informed side now, and it has to be Hertha Berlin. They're on their fourth manager of the season. And James, they're finally starting to look like the Hertha Berlin we've seen for the last few seasons. Everything is starting to click into place, isn't it?
I don't know what Bruno Levadia, who's had that right, has been given to the players, but they seem like a completely different team where, obviously talk about Grujic scored, didn't he? Opened the scoring yesterday against Leipzig. Absolutely superb from what I've seen. Got man of the match as well. But the game before that too, he was brilliant. And he's being the player that we know he can be, where he's playing in a slightly more offensive role, which I wasn't really expecting because we know him as sort of a box-to-box player. But playing as this sort of number 10, number 8, it's really working for him. We're seeing the old Marco Grujic come back.
And it's the one we know as Liverpool fans, the one we've seen do so well against Barcelona in that pre-season friendly. He's been very, very good, and consistency has been the problem, and consistency has been the thing that we've spoken about a lot this season with both Grujic and Hertha Berlin. But they're starting to look consistent. They've got 2 wins and a draw since football's resumed, and one of those is against Leipzig, who haven't necessarily been in form since football's come back, but they're a very good side in Germany, and they're still, they're still on the tails of Bayern Munich when it comes to fighting for that title. So it's very interesting, and they look so good right now. Their style of football is lovely to watch, and I like that game against Leipzig yesterday. They'll be feeling a bit unlucky that they didn't win it because I think they were the better side for most of the 90 minutes, to be honest with you, and obviously Leipzig down to 10 men as well. They could have won it, James, couldn't they?
Yeah, and as you said, they probably should have. They had 11 shots to Leipzig's 7, had equal share of possession. They're only 2 points behind Schalke. Obviously Schalke, we hope they pick up form, but realistically they might, keep slipping, and that's the perfect opportunity for Hertha to get their season back on track under this new manager and have this momentum push them forward, where they're probably not going to challenge for anything, but higher up the table, no one's going to complain about that. It's good for the fans. It gives them a good foundation then to hopefully continue next season.
Absolutely. Just before we finish this video, James, I want to talk about something that a lot of people have spoke about with the Bundesliga, and there's been a lot of goals due to bad goalkeeping during all this, and it's a common thing with the Bundesliga and talking about bad defending. What have you made what have you made of it? Sorry, since it's returned.
I mean, it's brilliant entertainment. I just want to say that first. It's brilliant seeing a goalkeeper make a mistake, but when you're seeing it happen twice in a game, it's kind of the novelty wears off. Where we saw that in the Champions League final against Real Madrid. It's funny the first time, you can laugh about it. When it happens again, it's just sad. And I'm liking to see, seeing all these goals is great, but it's not as competitive as it. Where defenders, I don't know whether they're scared to put in challenges or they're scared to fully exert themselves, but it's not quite the same, is it?
It's weird. We saw in Schalke Dortmund, obviously the Schalke keeper made numerous errors that game. We've seen Berkey do it in the Classical against Bayern, of course, and we saw. I think it was the Leipzig game yesterday where the Hertha keeper almost threw the ball into the back of his own net. It's just some bizarre moments.
No idea why it's happening.
No, it's very weird, and as I say, it's notorious that happens sometimes in the Bundesliga with defending and goalkeeping. But nonetheless, I think it's a brilliant league, and it's definitely bringing me entertainment at the minute, with it being the only major league that's returned. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back with as many videos now as we possibly can. Football is returning. Every day is a step closer to the Premier League coming back. We've got more Bundesliga action over the weekend, so let us know what you want to hear about, what player you like, and me and James will cover that. We'll try and do some player profiles and stuff as well if there's anybody you want to know about. Thank you very much for watching. Remember to give it a like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you real soon. Ta-ra.
Bye.